Hello ladies and gentlemen, it is Paul from Lone Wolf Media. Before I begin this video, I'd like to warn everyone that there are spoilers ahead, both from the past seasons of Game of Thrones and what has been revealed through the trailers. So if you want to go into this next season blind, I suggest that you stop watching right now. Now, from what I've gathered from the trailers released so far, I think I have a pretty good idea of how the War of the Five Queens will pan out. The five queens being Cersei, Daenerys, Yara, Olenna Tyrell, and Ellaria Sand. The first major battle, I believe, will be a siege of Pike, the Greyjoy castle. And from the looks of it, Euron is going to be in huge trouble, but he won't go down without a big fight. Theon and Yara are going to be leading the attack together, but they will encounter a great deal of resistance. The reason why I believe they will attack Pike is because of this shot. Now if you look closely, the people attacking each other in this shot are wielding axes, and the only people who would mainly use axes are the Ironborn. So it looks like we're going to be seeing a lot of Ironborn against Ironborn combat. Euron is going to fight back by throwing everything he's got at Theon and Yara. This will be a full-on Iron Islands civil war. Ships will burn as we see in this photo, where what appears to be a shot of burning pitch hits the mast of a ship, presumably one of Yara and Theon's ships, because we see them looking up at it just a moment before. Euron is going to go berserk, as we see in this shot, where he's swinging an axe, but in the end, Pike will fall. Now, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but as we see in this shot, a bunch of armed men are crossing a rope bridge high above some huge waves. Now, the only place in Westeros that has rope bridges over huge waves is Pike, and it looks like it will fall, which means that Euron will die. Now, strategically speaking, why would Yara want to attack Pike? First of all, as long as Euron is alive, he will try to hunt down Yara and Theon. Second of all, Pike is pretty close to Lannisport, and Daenerys will have to take Lannisport, and if she wants to hold Lannisport, she'll have to defend it from a hostile Euron, who for sure won't be happy with her because of her alliance with Yara and Theon. Third of all, it would intimidate the Lannister forces holding Lannisport and Casterly Rock, with an enemy so close having just successfully taken a major castle. Now, the second major attack is going to be more of Daenerys' doing. Daenerys is going to take Lannisport and Casterly Rock. The fall of Casterly Rock will be swift, and this next shot gives me reason to believe that. Pure Grey Worm seems to be leading a group of Unsullied into a cave. This cave will lead to the inside of Casterly Rock. Now, why would the cave lead to Casterly Rock, you're probably asking yourself. If we go back to earlier in the series, Tyrion said he was given the job of maintaining the sewer system in Lannisport. Tyrion knows where all the sewer waste would eventually be disposed of, coming out of a cave by the sea, and he will give this information to the forces attacking Casterly Rock. The sewers would inevitably lead to Casterly Rock, and the Unsullied would take it from the inside. As you can see here, some Unsullied are opening the gates of what looks to be Casterly Rock. At a glance, you might say this is King's Landing, but upon closer inspection of other shots, such as this one, you can see that this castle just doesn't look the same, and you can see Lannister heraldry painted on the walls, indicating that this is indeed Casterly Rock. From here, Daenerys' Khalasar will begin their main assault on Westeros. This is where Cersei will make the biggest blunder of the war, and where the war will essentially be lost for her. She's going to try to meet the Dothraki in open field, which if you've been paying attention for the entire series, you know is a serious mistake to make. The only people who successfully fought against the Dothraki in open field were the Unsullied at Qohor, and this time the Unsullied are fighting alongside the Dothraki. In her arrogance, Cersei's going to make this blunder, and the Lannister forces are going to get crushed. This, in fact, is going to be a second field of fire. For those of you who aren't familiar with the lore of Game of Thrones and the A Song of Ice and Fire books, when Aegon the Conqueror invaded Westeros, he fought the combined forces of Kings Loren Lannister and Mern Gardner, even though they vastly outnumbered him. But he did have his three dragons, Balerion the Black Dread, Vhagar, and Meraxes, and he unleashed them all. The dragons killed 4,000 men, including Mern Gardner and all his sons, grandsons, brothers, cousins, and nephews, who led the charge against Aegon. What's going to happen in this second field of fire is that the Dothraki will charge, and Jaime Lannister and Bronn, who are commanding the Lannister forces, are going to have archers send in numerous volleys of arrows as they hide behind the shield wall with spears. This shield wall will collapse against the Dothraki charge, and the Lannister troops will begin to retreat. As they retreat, however, Daenerys and her dragons will incinerate the fleeing troops, leaving very few survivors. The Dothraki and the Unsullied will then slaughter the survivors who are still trying to flee. This could mean the death of one of my favorite characters, Jaime. Here we see him on his horse, holding a lance and appearing to charge at someone. He appears to have survived the incineration, but he seems to be alone on the battlefield, and that could be a very bad sign for him. However, this next shot gives me reason to believe that he won't die. Here we see Jaime walking on the ramparts of King's Landing, and he could be preparing for the siege on the city by Daenerys' forces. Here we see Greyjoy's ships sailing towards King's Landing. Given that most of the Lannister forces have been defeated, Cersei isn't going to hold King's Landing and the Red Keep for very long. When Daenerys' forces have breached the city gates, Cersei will try to blow up King's Landing and the Red Keep with wildfire to take as much of the Targaryen forces with her as possible. However, Jaime will kill her before she can execute her plan. He would also fulfill the criterion of the Valonqar, meaning little brother, part of the Valonqar prophecy because he's Cersei's younger brother by a few minutes. This would end the War of the Five Queens, with Daenerys sitting on the Iron Throne, but possibly not for long. What I think will be a little side note before any of the fighting begins is that the Lords of the Stormlands will revolt against Cersei, because they will have found a new leader to revolt under, Gendry. We haven't seen Gendry for the past 3 seasons, and there's no way George R.R. Martin and D&D will let his story go unfinished. He's going to hear the stories about Cersei and how crazy she is, and he's going to feel obligated to do something, because after all, he's the only surviving person with Robert Baratheon's blood in the show. He's going to think that someone should resist Cersei, and that he could get the Stormlands to fight Cersei under his leadership. What I think will end up happening is that along with the Stormlands armies, he's going to harass the Lannister forces for the duration of the war. And when the war's over, Daenerys is going to reward Gendry for his aid by legitimizing him, so he's no longer a bastard, and by acknowledging him as the Lord of Storm's End and of the Stormlands. What I find interesting about this war is that from the trailers, the North doesn't seem to be involved in the war. Instead, Jon seems to be focusing on doing things north of the Wall. However, what I think the North will be involved in is negotiations at Dragonstone. King's Landing won't be fit for any post-wartime negotiations, because it will have been heavily damaged by Daenerys' siege. So all major houses will convene on Dragonstone, since it will have been untouched by the war, and it's also where Aegon the Conqueror landed to prepare his conquest of Westeros, thus making it a Targaryen symbol of power. The reason why I think the North will be present at these negotiations is because in the second trailer, Jon is urging a group of people, presumably from many noble families, to set aside their differences because winter is here and a united Westeros is the only chance at defeating the army of the dead. Could this be where Jon makes a move to take the Iron Throne by stating that he's the best person to lead Westeros through the long night, and that he's the son of Rhaegar Targaryen? But how will he find out about his true lineage? That is a question I will predict the answer to in the next video. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more predictions and speculation on the 7th season, which is only weeks away. Once again, thank you for watching.